Yeah, I'm about to add you.
Right, so now everything's running. Can everybody hear me?
Hi, my name is Joy Hercardillo, and I'm a legal writing professor with the James E. Rogers College of Law at the University of Arizona. And today I'd like to talk about gamification and using it to improve student engagement. So starting with a little bit of background about gamification, it's become increasingly popular at all levels of education, and this is particularly effective with Millennial and Gen Z students who are very familiar with both video and online games. But the benefits of game-based activities really go beyond just making the class more fun. They really have psychological and physiological benefits and really bring the students in and induce what psychologists call flow. And of course, the games also increase student engagement. So here are some recent articles about the effectiveness of using games in the classroom. So by way of context, I use games in the context of team-based learning. I've been using team-based learning for several years now in my writing class. And for those of you not familiar with it, it has two major components. First, it's a flipped classroom, so there's a lot of individual out-of-class prep for the students. And then in class, we work in teams where the students focus on applying the principles that were taught in the out-of-class materials. So the class is organized into permanent teams, and the course content is divided into units. Each unit begins with a readiness assurance process, and then once the students are familiar with the concepts, we move on to application exercises. And application exercises are really where I can bring in a lot of games. But just to help you understand, the readiness assurance process starts with a quiz. We call it a readiness assurance quiz, and they're designed to test the students' understanding of the assigned readings. There are 10 multiple choice questions, which the students first take individually, and then they come into class and they take them in their teams, and they have to reach a consensus and talk through the answer. And if their first answer is not correct, they keep going until they ultimately arrive at the correct answer. So, as I mentioned, the application exercises follow up after you've completed the readiness assurance process, and this is where we really have an opportunity to introduce some fun exercises in class. We do a lot of in-class drafting and editing exercises, and a fair number of games and competitions, and some oral advocacy exercises. So these are just students engaged in some of these in-class exercises. To make it a little bit more interesting, because the application exercises are not graded, the quizzes are, but the application exercises are ungraded. So a few years ago, I created what I call the Great Application Race, where for each unit, the students they get graded, their application exercises are submitted. I give them a score between 1 and 10, and then it's a semester-long contest. And because I'm always looking to take advantage of the natural competitiveness of law students, this really has, I think, led to students really engaging more fully in these application exercises. And the winning team gets a care kit for exam studying and stuff like that. So for the application exercises, sometimes I like to use games. And so these are some of the online games that I've used with great effect. So we're going to go through each one of these, and I've got some demonstration videos. Okay, so Socrative is the first website that I used when I learned about it when I started teaching full-time in 2017. I created a teacher account. I've only ever used the free account. I haven't needed anything more than that, although you can upgrade. When you log into it, you are brought to this launch page, and you can launch either quizzes or space races. Mostly what I have used this for is a space race, but first I create the quizzes. So over here on this tab you see quizzes, and this is all the quizzes that I've created over the years. I usually use it in the first semester to challenge or to do something regarding hierarchy of authority. And so this is a quiz where I present students with 2 or sometimes 3 citations, and they need to figure out which one of the cases cited is mandatory authority. Okay, so on this next page, now I'm going to log in as a student, and it's the students just put in my room name, and then they put in their own names, or sometimes I run this as a space race. And so enter my name, and then here's the first question. You're litigating a First Amendment case in Federal District Court for the District of Arizona. And so what the students need to recognize is obviously that a Ninth Circuit case is going to be the higher authority. So you submit answer, and they get correct and an explanation in case if they have the incorrect answer, then at least this explains why the answer was correct. So now this is back under, I'm signed in as the instructor here, and you can see that I can click here to see the results. So as the students are doing it, I can, see how they're doing. And ultimately, I can get a report on any quizzes that run. So another thing that I like to do actually for this hierarchy authority, because this is one of the application exercises for the team-based learning, I usually will launch this as a space race. So I need to stop my current activity, and now I'm going to do the hierarchy of authority, and I'm going to have student choice. I have 6 teams, and go ahead and start it. So now I will go log in as a student. So JHC LRAC. Select my team. The teams are color coded, and I tell the students which color they're going to be in. And we'll go ahead and get the right answer there. We'll clear the right answer here. Bottom line, when this is set up like a space race, I put this up on the screen so they can see how they're competing. Okay, so here under the, you want to be under the quiz tab if you want to just kind of look at different quizzes, and it's really easy. They make it really easy to share quizzes that you've created with your colleagues. So some of these I've created, some of these my colleagues created, and I've used them in my class. But this is a Red Book quiz that I created. This is more of another type of quiz that I created, and this involves citations, and so this is the report for my class. I ran this at the end of the semester in March just to quiz them on citations. I won't show you their names, but you can see that it's really easy to see, okay, well, what questions were they having problems with? Yeah, it'll take you to question 7. So you can actually, one of my colleagues will go through the results table, spot a problem, and click on it and take some time with the students. So that's Socrative. So the next video site or online site is Trivia Master. In March of 2020, when we first went into lockdown, I was searching the internet for all sorts of gaming sites and ideas, and I came across this Trivia Maker, which at the time was really, I think, more geared to like business team building type of app. But at any rate, I played around with it. But I want to show you a couple of the game formats that have worked well for me in the classroom. So the first one is sort of like a Wheel of Fortune, and I set up this game for early on in the semester. So you can either, when you go to play a game, you can either do the basic, where it just plays on this device, or you can do this controller with a presenter, which in the classroom is much better. So I'm going to do it that way. So we're going to launch the controller. And now I need to go back and launch the presenter. And let me just bring the controller down to my screen. We'll show this code. I'll put this. So you see, I can customize it. I have Bear Down, Arizona going. Quiet that down. And this is just basically Wheel of Fortune, and this is just sort of some of the introductory concepts that we use and that we teach at the beginning. Team 1 wants to spin the wheel, so this is the wheel, and again, those are customized colors, and guess a letter. So I'm going to guess, the student guesses T. Then they spin again, and you can play with like letting every team take a turn, you know, whatever you want, but at any rate, I'm going to just play it like they do on TV. So now the student can guess, they get it correct, and they solved the puzzle. So it's trial court, appellate court, highest court. Okay, so another format is kind of your basic Jeopardy type format, and this I've used at kind of the end of semester overview. So I'm going to go ahead and so now I've put in the code, and so here are the categories: citation, grammar, CREAC, statement of facts, argument, the content, argument writing, and then you have the game board here, and the students can, for example, citation for 300, and I have them answer in the form of a question. So when the local rules tell you to, whenever possible, when should you include parallel citations is the answer. So they get this right. And for this one, I have used buzz in live for the students to buzz in. I'm controlling this. They can't see the answers. I can see the answers. Show you what that looks like. So this is what I'm seeing as I'm controlling it. So for example, unfavorable facts, what do you want to emphasize? Or what do you want to de-emphasize? So, and then I can say what team gets it, and then go back to the board. So that's the Jeopardy version. The last game style game that we have a lot of fun with, and that is down here, Family Feud type of game. So round one is Professor HC's pet peeves. And so this one we just played as a free-for-all because we were completely out of time, but it was fun. And the number one pet peeve they all got, periods or commas outside quotation marks. And then there's some other ones, incorrect capitalization of court. And I haven't used all of the different types of games they have available, but these have worked really, really well, and they're fun to put together. Okay, so one final site. This is very abbreviated demonstration video, and it's puzzle, PUZZEL.org. So this is what the puzzle looks like when the students come to take it. You can also, the thing I love about this site is I can embed these on the learning management webpage. So this is another an acrostic style puzzle, and this one is a cryptogram. I mentioned that you can embed this on your learning management system, and so I just wanted to show you what it looks like when the students see it. And then this semester I found something new, and I found make your own custom Wordle. Okay, so that's just a sample of some of the games that I've discovered and used with great success in my classroom. I hope you enjoyed it.
Okay. All righty, thank you, Joy. And stop sharing. Okay, and then Ross is up next. Don't call him Zelda. You should be able to share your screen, Ross, and take it away. You're currently muted. I will say that. So.
Yeah, I always do that. Okay, let me get I'm going to share my screen now and see if we can make this work. Whoa, okay.
There you go.
We have, Elmer, can you tell me if people can see that? I'm assuming everyone can see I'm on the right screen, right?
Yes, you're on the right screen.
All right, thank you. I am glad to be at Cali this year, 2022, talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is computer games. A few years ago, it's been about 8 years ago now, I went to another law conference, not Cali, and I'd left my program somewhere and I was wandering around the hallway, and I came to this presentation that was a panel of several people talking about games, using games in a legal environment. And when they got there, as I walked into the room, the person who was talking pointed at the screen. They had their iteration of Link on the screen and referred to him as Zelda. And a groan went through the room. And everyone on the podium, up on the stage with him, began to studiously review their notes. And I really felt sorry for him. But the big takeaway for me out of that moment was the realization that as a law professor at a Pac-12 university, I could spend my research time writing about computer games, which I really love to do. Hello, I'm Ross. I'm not Zelda, neither is he. I taught legal research at the S.J. Quinney Law School for over 15 years, various iterations of it. My research interests include how the law impacts in the computer gaming industry. And I'm gonna put my bias out on the table in the interest of full disclosure. I graduated from college with an English degree and a philosophy degree, two very useful degrees to help you get a job. I ended up working for a company called Bethesda Softworks. If you're a gamer at all, you know that Bethesda Softworks, now Bethesda Game Studios, there's been a couple of corporate changes over the years, makes a number of games, including the Elder Scrolls franchise. They made Skyrim, for example. No, I had nothing to do with it. They also did the reboot on the Fallout franchise. And no, I had nothing to do with Fallout 76. You can't blame that on me. What I did work on was a game called Morrowind, in the event that anyone has any memory of that game. The reason I wanted to do this presentation, and the reason this is my research interest, is because law schools tend to ignore video games. We have journals out there on gambling. We have an entire, the ABA has an entire gambling game, but we don't have a lot of video games. And that's what I want to talk about today. How do we bring games into the classroom? Because there's some very large social issues, legal issues we need to be talking about. As lawyers, as people, we have a voice. And I want to encourage you as researchers to write more, research and write more in the gaming industry. And I also want students to write more in the gaming. We tend to sometimes be to shut students down when they go in this direction. So hopefully let's get started, and I can give you some ideas you can bring into the class and talk about with your students. Gaming is really, really taking off. It's addressing a number of social issues in ways that our voices just will not be heard. One of the things that is important to remember is that gamers are deeply influenced by the games they play. And the messages often that they get are coming through these games. And we're going to take a look in a moment. We're not just talking about kids here. Gaming accounts for about $150 billion of entertainment industry revenue a year. It's the most lucrative entertainment industry by far. And these numbers, I'm just going to warn you right now, these numbers are soft. They're not, they're difficult to quantify because sometimes people who maintain or gather these numbers will lump box office with film, with streaming television. And if they start dumping things together like that, then yeah, that number is going to go up over gaming. Another number that I don't have on the screen right now is gambling. Gambling is also something that goes up significantly, has a significant amount of revenue each year. A couple of things though, let's throw out a couple of definitions so we know what we're talking about. Definition number one is games. When I talk about games, what am I talking about? computer games, console games, tablet games, maybe some phone games. I'm not talking about gambling. That's a completely different topic. We're talking about games that you play for entertainment. And the second definition I have, and I do not have a statistic for this, is what is a gamer? And the reason I don't have a statistic is because they're all over the place. Some people would say that only 30% of Americans are gamers. Some people claim that over 70% of Americans are. And it all comes down to how you define what a gamer is. How many hours a week do you have to play for you to be a gamer? And so it's a difficult thing to quantify. But one thing that we know for sure is that it's not just kids that are playing anymore. 80% of gamers are over the age of 18. 28%, a full third, getting close to a full third, are over the age of 45. So it's not just millennials. It's not just teenagers. And the numbers went up slightly during COVID. But I want to clarify something really quickly here, because I've seen now in a couple of press items where people have talked about gaming and kind of got the facts wrong a little bit. The number of revenue went up. Okay, let's be clear. Revenue went through the roof during COVID. It's not an understatement to say that the best thing that happened to the computer gaming industry was the pandemic. It really, revenue went up a lot. However, number of people that actually game did not go up so much. A lot of it has to do with the fact where it did go up. In fact, categorically, where it went up is in the under 18 group. More kids started gaming, so to speak, during COVID. My general feel is that people who didn't game before COVID didn't game after COVID. Like adults suddenly didn't start gaming when they were gaming before. That's not something that happened. But we're going to see that that number of people over 45 go up through the years as gamers that are now playing mature. And it's not just men. This is another thing I want to get out there. 40 to 48% of gamers are women. But the more troubling statistic here is that only 26% of them are comfortable identifying themselves as gamers. And this is a very real problem in the industry. We're going to talk more about gender issues in just a moment. Equally problematic is that members of the LGBT community, persons of color, they also have difficulty identifying themselves as gamers, or are reluctant to identify themselves because of the sometimes widespread harassment that occurs in games. And one of the things that's important to remember as you look at this graph, and you look at the graph, the black is women, the black lines are women, blue lines are men, and you can see that in about 2014, it dips up. In other words, a lot of women step back from gaming. And the reason is Gamergate. And Gamergate happened, women became more uncomfortable gaming, and they just kind of backed away from it. Here's the thing that we need to be thinking about. I think we need to be thinking about as lawyers and law professors is how do we bring these games and the issues surrounding these games into our classroom? How can we use them to help us educate law students? You knew we were going to end up here, right? Phoenix, right, is the classic lawyer game. It is, and I want to be clear before someone bites my head off. I am not suggesting we use Phoenix, right, to teach law. But I'm going to tell you a quick story. About 8 years ago, I had that law school class that everyone gets once in a while, where your students just don't respond. They're not engaged. And I was beside myself trying to figure out how I could get them involved. And so I decided to bring Phoenix Wright into the classroom. And I was embarrassed. I was a little nervous about it. I was sensitive. I thought the students would think it was silly. I brought it in, set it up, and I was stunned how quickly they became engaged. The connection was immediate for a lot of them. Yeah, there's always a few students that are like, this is silly. But what was really cool is that as the class progressed that semester, students began to feel a lot more comfortable giving me what was a wrong answer. And then it became a joke throughout the class that as students were doing that, and they realized they had the wrong answer, they would say to me, "Oh, I thought you were asking for the Phoenix answer." It turned out, and it turned a class that was not going very well into one that became engaging and fun. I've used them throughout the years, and I keep thinking that this game is really going to become outdated. Well, first, Capcom's not going to let it go. They have 10 iterations of this game. But the other thing is that every year I bring it out, excuse me, the students become more and more, the students continue to be engaged. I've had a couple of years when they weren't real wild about it, but for the most part, it's a useful tool. Now, this is a fun way to use games to reinforce engagement. I want to show you an example of how you can use a darker game to discuss some very difficult topics to talk about. And the game I want to use is Braid. And I'm just going to say it right now, spoiler alert, if you want to play Braid, haven't played it yet, I'm going to have to give the ending away. Braid is a game where you as a player play as Tim, this guy who's going to rescue a princess, and he's the best thing that could happen to the princess. He sees himself as the hero in the princess's life, and between him and the princess are a lot of traps and puzzles and this knight that keeps getting in his way. What happens as you go through the game? And I played the game cold back in 2000, I think about 2010, and never played it before, played it cold. And when I got to the ending, the flip, because the game flips, I was stunned. What happens is it turns out, as you get further and further into the game, Braid is delusional. And what he's actually doing is harassing the princess. This is, and it becomes a very dark game. He is the enemy. And the game has been called a masterpiece. Benjamin Joy, who made the game, it's been called a genius. It is a very effective way to start a discussion on issues like domestic violence and violence to women, because it is. And I think at one point I read, and I couldn't confirm it before my presentation, that there were some social worker groups who were using the game with teenagers to help them better understand some of the dynamics that were involved in divorces with their parents and stuff like that. Again, it's a way to start a conversation about a very serious topic without going real serious right out of the gate. Games offer an opportunity to bring to light social issues that are key to law students. Everything from gun control, DEI issues, gender issues, mental illness and disability. My research focuses on gender issues and how women are treated and portrayed in games. But any of these issues are relevant. And I'm going to throw out a couple today so that you can see how this works. and why you might want to use these in your classes. I apologize for my voice. I wanted to be in Chicago. I've had an immunity system issue. My immune system, sorry, not immunity. That would be a different problem. At immune system, my immune system is compromised. I can't travel. And then this morning I woke up with this sore throat. So I apologize for that. Guns and gaming go together. It is a dramatic, it is not even an understatement to say that almost every game, a large portion of games involve killing in some sort. Using games as a way to talk about guns and violence, I feel, is a very, it can be very useful. Most law schools offer either a Second Amendment class or a gun control class, and having the opportunity as students to discuss the violence that's in games versus the violence that's on the streets is extremely useful. I would personally like to see more students writing about the effect of gun violence in games on positively and negatively, if there is, on violence in life, as you might say. Gun violence as portrayed in games can be. The research here is kind of all over the place, and there frankly isn't a lot of it. So I would encourage you, if you have an interest in this area, to get involved. Reach out to me. I have some articles and stuff that are on this topic. Mental health awareness. The reason I put this in here is because there's one issue in gaming that is very, very important, and I'm going to try to wrap this up really quickly. In 2013, a woman named Zoe Quinn made a game called Depression Quest, and it was a game that helped players go through the stages of depression. As a result of that game, Gamergate was launched, and by 2014, there was this widespread, nationwide, actually worldwide, harassment of women and women gamers, and it was really one of the darkest moments in women's history, particularly in gaming. The issue of mental illness and how it can be positively addressed in a game was core to the discussion, as well as whether or not games should even be addressing these issues. Giant Sparrow in 2017 released What Became of Edith Finch, which again reiterated this issue. But what women were finding, and this I cannot overstate, how bad this was. Brianna Wu, was a game designer, a female game designer, and male gamers posted her personal home address on the internet and then challenged each other to go find her and rape her. All because of this addressable of mental illness. What began with a game that addressed mental illness. This is a nice segue into another topic that I think games could be very useful, and that is gender and women's issues. This is my area of interest, and as many of you may know, I'm surprised about the number of people who don't know. Activision Blizzard was subject to a lawsuit for sexual harassment, and in 2021, and I practiced Title VII law before I came to law school. Came to teach here, and the 29-page complaint filed against Activision by the state of California is one of the worst complaints I have ever seen, and that's not an exaggeration. And I wish I could say it was just that one issue, that one game company, but it's not. Electronic Arts, Ubisoft, Paradox, the list goes on and on of gaming companies that are now being subject to allegations of sexual harassment and abuse of women. Again, if I had my wish list, I would like to see more research on how we handle this legally. We should be talking about this in our classrooms. And here we get to the real issues. By the way, this is not a photograph, it's a Minecraft map. I think the things we can do is to be supportive of gamers. We tend to trivialize gaming in academia. And for far too many faculty members, gaming represents the enemy. We see them as a distraction or something that diminishes what our students can produce. But at $150 billion a year, people are making careers out of this. The problem is we need attorneys who are willing to represent female gamers who want to start their own gaming companies, persons of color, the LGBT community who want to find a voice in what is frankly an extended form of artistic development. We need to be aware of legal issues in the gaming, because when we tell a student, I don't know anything about that, we're saying it's not important enough for us to know about. So I would encourage you, please be aware of those issues and develop and encourage research amongst yourself and your other and your students. I hope I didn't go too long. I'm trying to move as fast as I can. Please, if you have an interest in this area, contact me. I'm happy to talk to you. If you'd like to find ways, exercises, exams, things you can do with your students that involve the gaming industry, I'm happy to help you with that. And I'll leave you with this. This is Zelda, not the guy. Thank you so much. Thank you, Cali. Thank you, Elmer.
And our third speaker, who's our third speaker, Elmer?
That would be you, John. But a reminder that we are running long.
Yeah.
I'm depending on how you want to look at it. So, talk faster.
Am I still sharing the screen here, or? No, I gotta share my screen.
No, you have to share screen.
All right, let's grab it. All right, very good. Hi, everybody. My name is John Mayer. I'm the executive director of Cali. I'm coming off the bench to fill for a speaker who had to cancel at the last minute, but I wanted to talk about this topic. But my ideas aren't as well formed as they usually are. But it's a bit of a long story that I'm going to condense a lot because of time and other reasons. So I call it lesson link formative assessment and gamification. And let's see if that works. Nope. Let's see if that works. That worked. So a typical Cali lesson, right? Questions are asked, student responds, they get feedback, awesome, told if they're right or they're wrong. But the key here is they get a score, right? How many right, how many wrong? And we've had a lot of conversations amongst the Cali staff about the psychology of that, right? We don't want students clicking around until they get green. That's not learning. We want that, but we do want that score, and they want a score because we want them to be motivated by it. I want to get the right answer. I want to get a high score. So we've been vaguely, or we've been very aware of the gamification of education in our like little corner of our world, and have been trying to think of how we can do more with that. Now, when a student runs a lesson and gets a score, only they see it. When a faculty member creates a lesson link, then that little tag shows up there. And now both the student can see it and the faculty member gets a report, an analytics report, actually, that tells, and the goals there are two things. One, tell the faculty if a particular student is struggling, because they did really poorly on a bunch of questions, Or tell the faculty if the whole class is struggling on a series of topics, maybe they should look at themselves or what they're teaching or their materials, to make sure that the material is being covered. That's formative assessment. If you want to read a book about it, the best one is Popham's Transformative Assessment, with a working definition. Formative assessment is a process used by teachers and students during instruction, not after instruction. We're not talking about the final exam or the grade. We're talking about during instruction, that provides feedback to adjust ongoing teaching. Oh, you guys are getting it. I'm going to change what I'm going to say. I'm going to find some supplementary materials, and learning to improve students' achievement of intended instructional outcomes. Right? That's a fairly precise definition, and it's important to understand that it's not just quizzes. All right. So in lesson link, you get this, the faculty get this, and the most important thing, and they get sort of a dumb report if they just click on that, which just says, did the student run the lesson, and did they, what was their sort of like overall grade? Not a lot of detail. That's fine. It's layers, right? If they click that analytics button, then they get a better report. Oops, I want to back up. They get a better report, which will have grade out the students, even though they were a bunch of faculty who did poorly on a demo I was giving. I didn't want to embarrass them. You can sort that and then see which students did really well and which students didn't do so well. Which could solve that first thing. It's like, I better go talk to these folks and see what's going on, that they didn't get any of the questions right or something like that, right? The second one is you get a report that's all the questions in the Cali lesson. And again, it's sortable, so you can see, well, it looks like everybody's handling that fine, but it looks like people are having trouble with these types of questions. Maybe I better go look at that and see if I do a little review session or something like that, right? Right in the report, they can click on any of those. That will go into a special version of a Cali lesson, which is sort of like a text version that lets the faculty members see the question that they got right or got wrong, that the student got right or wrong. That's the second layer. The third layer is within the reporting system. They could click on include specific students, include all dates of student runs. The student could run the lesson multiple times. Or they could see all the responses to every question broken down by the list of students for each response. It just builds out that graph, that chart, so that if they want to dig deeper, they can do that. That's the third level. The fourth level is they could click download the whole thing as a CSV and then have at it with Excel if they've got like the mathematical smarts to do that. Right. And we did that in layers because we're having enough trouble getting faculty's attention. So we're like, look, students ran lessons. Look, students ran lessons and didn't do so well, or the whole class didn't do so well. Look, here's even more data so you can see which students didn't do so well on which question. And hey, you want to download the whole thing? Have at it. We're trying to gamify the sort of gradual revealment of detail so that they don't get overwhelmed by too much information. Right? So what's this got to do with gamification, right? It's a strategic attempt to enhance system services, organizations, and activities in order to create similar experiences to those experienced when playing games. In other words, I don't want to make law school a game or learning a game. I want to use game mechanics to make law school work better, to make legal education work better. In order to motivate and engage users, that's where I'm looking at. I want to motivate and engage law students. All right. So it's not about making it easy or fun. It's about making it work better. I want to use psychology to make legal education work better. You saw this in my opening keynote. The two books that I like right now, and there's more, but these are the ones that I want. And I thought I'd do a little for this talk. I thought I'd do a little exercise with all of us. So this is Yukai Chow's Octalysis. He came up with it, and he's selling it well. But there's like 8 things that motivate people inside of games. And I thought I'd go through all these definitions real quick. And I want us to think of like, well, what in legal education would that be, for example? So epic meaning and calling is the core drive where a player believes that he's doing something greater than himself or that he was chosen to do. there anything in legal education like that? What? Excellent. You're a lawyer. You're gonna save the whales. You're gonna win for your client. You're gonna be. I was about to say Barnaby Jones and realized, okay, boomer. Who's a current lawyer? Atticus Finch. Well, that's even older, boy. Anyhow, yeah. There we go. That would be awesome. So what about accomplishment? Development and accomplishment is the internal drive of making progress, developing skills. Okay, that in law school, you're finishing assignments, turning in materials, passing classes, going from 1L to 2L, getting on the law review and things like that. That's pretty straightforward accomplishment. Empowerment and creativity is when users are engaged in a creative process, they have to repeatedly figure things out and try different combinations. Anything in law school like that? Ooh, good. Trial ad, moot court, refining of your persuasion. I would say writing and rewriting, but a lot of people, if they write their paper on the night before, they only do one pass on it, right? That's a good one. I hadn't thought of that. What about ownership? This is the drive where users are motivated because they feel like they own something. In other words, they want to acquire something. What do law students want to acquire in legal education? The credential, the grade, the license, and so on, right? Social influence, this one's easy. Mentorship, acceptance, social responses, companionship. You're looking for friends, study buddies. You want people to think that you're a smart person, sure. Scarcity, the drive of wanting something because you can't have it, like a Cali award, only one per class, or cum laude, or summa cum laude, right? Magna cum laude, or order of the coif, or getting on the law review. Wow, I can think a lot of those. Unpredictability, this is the harmless drive of waiting to find out what will happen next. I don't know how that fits. Maybe we won't use that much. And avoidance, the core drive based on avoidance. In other words, I don't want to fail out of law school. I don't want to have wasted all this money and time. I don't want my parents to hate me, whatever that is. So yeah, avoidance works and all that. So in best game design, it has clear goals. Defeat the boss, make it to the thing, build the mansion, whatever it is. It has good feedback. It has a balance between challenge and skills. Balance is really important. You want it to be just hard enough that it's a challenge, but not so hard that you give up, you what is that, rage quit, or too easy that you're like, this is a grind, and there should be no more low stakes for failure. In other words, well, I'm going to try it, and I'm going to fail. Then I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to try it again. And law school courses are nothing like that. Right? A lot of times the goals are murky, the feedback is minimal, the balance is I got to climb this vertical cliff, and I get a final exam at the end where I find out that I'm going to have to, it's going to damage my GPA. And so there's a lot of benefit, I would hope. If we look at some of the game elements, we just went through some of those in law school class, the grade, knowing the answer, being a gunner, mastering the material, being inspired, passing the bar. What if we did something like had weekly feedback on the application of knowledge? So now I'm back to lesson link, right? Giving feedback is a gamification mechanic that will give people some reassurance that they're making progress. It's about knowing the answer in class and having lots of opportunities to try, fail, succeed. So the way that I see that is in peer grading systems like peer view, Perusall. There's some tools that I don't have time to show you or demo, and they, because there's only one instructor and he's only giving feedback to 1 or 2 people per class, you use a peer grading system in which everybody round robins peer feedback to everybody else. And you do that a lot so that you get a lot of feedback. And then finally, the mastering material, completing the readings and getting immediate feedback. And we saw demos of that in the E-Langdell section on the H5P, where there's actual feedback after reading. So, I showed this tweet when I was there. Why can't we make law school more like a video game? There's 66% of the US are gamers. I know I heard the number somewhere between 30 and 70%. I too have seen numbers, it depends on how you measure it, how many hours per week, what games, you mean casual games, you mean console games, and so on and so forth. But I think that we can design law school courses that motivate students to want to learn, just beyond the fear of failure or the grind of learning. And we want students to practice towards not just competence and to be able to demonstrate it. Maybe that's the new bar exam is all about, but to be motivated to go for hard mode, right? You know, so radical change would be none of this 14 weeks, 3 times a week, 1 hour, sitting, listening to some drone on, but a course that is a series of quests that you play until you win. Everybody who finishes gets a C. If you want a B or an A, well, then you got to play it on hard mode or do complete side quests, you know, things that demonstrate that you know more than the person who got the C, did the least to get past the class, right? Careful design to ensure that help appears when you need it. In other words, maintaining that balance between this is really hard or this is too easy, you know. It's called flow. And you heard, remember, one of my previous presenters talked about it. The optimal psychological state that people experience when engaged in an activity that is both appropriately challenging to one's skills level, often resulting in immersion and concentrated focus on task. This can result in deep learning. Notice the word game does not appear in that definition. Flow is something that can happen to you in any intense activity. All right. So I want to study this more. I don't know enough yet, and I'm going to form a bit of a study group. And if you would like to join me on that, we'll have a meeting, you know, every couple of weeks. We'll bring to the table what we've read or what we've learned, you know, and I have a specific goal. I want to figure out new products or changes to existing Cali products, you know, that use gamification mechanics to improve legal education. And then I just had one last meta thought. What if we gamified the teaching side? What would it mean to gamify teaching? And then my head exploded, and here we are. All right. Wow, finished right on time, which is to say late because there's no time for questions. Time for what? One question?
Online, I mean, one person asked online, what games are you playing now, I guess?
I'm too embarrassed to tell you.
Just wondered about that, right? I mean, you know, would anybody answer that question? I mean, I would. I mean, I'd play No Man's Sky whenever, you know, when I have some time, and
No Man's Sky.
sim racing. Sim racing. So, you know,
Ross, what games are you playing? Joy?
Wow. Okay.
I'm not a gamer.
Even after this
At the risk of embarrassing myself, I burned through them fairly quick. My Steam account, those of you that are familiar with Steam, has about 472 games on it.
opened.
I told you to double the number, okay? I was honest. For years I've played EVE Online since 2005. EVE Online has a reputation for being one of the more toxic games, but it does have, you can find your way through that. Ironically, a lot of lawyers play EVE Online. Some of the most notorious players in the game's history, and EVE has this really unique history, are lawyers. I think I admitted I play Borderlands quite a bit. I've done that. The game I've been playing, the game I played last night, we'll put it that way. The game I played last night was Horizon Zero Sky. I've had the game for a while. I just haven't got around to playing it. I'm deeply influenced by this game. I'm so proud that someone put together a game with a realistic, unsexified woman in it. It's the great thing about gaming. And by the way, I love the slides about how we can make quests out of law school. Why aren't we doing that? But anyway, the thing that games give us is the ability to put ourselves into a place, not just a physical environment, but a skin that we wouldn't have otherwise. I'm interested to see how the new Spider-Man game gets reviewed. Everyone seems to love it.
Cool. All right, we're generally out of time. Thanks, folks. Appreciate you joining us today. So we've got another vendor presentation. We're probably gonna take 5 at least before we bring Tim Stanley.
Just get that set up and, yeah. So-
And I can't recommend listening to Tim talk whenever you get a chance enough. He's always got he's got interesting things to say. All right.
You can always feed him some good questions.
That's right. See you guys.